Hello, everyone, and welcome to the June 2022 Kubernetes Community Meeting. Today is June 16th, 2022. Thank you for joining or watching the recording. A few things before we get started. This community meeting is live streamed and will be posted publicly on YouTube. So please be mindful what you say is being recorded. This is an official meeting of the Kubernetes project, and we abide by the Kubernetes Code of Conduct, which boils down just to be excellent, kind, and respectful to each other. I'm your host today. My name is Ray Alejano. Professionally, I work with SUSE by way of Rancher Labs. I'm also the SIGDocs co-chair and wear a few other hats in the community, so you might see me around. We'll make a note or do a call for if anyone could volunteer to be a note taker. We don't have anyone that has volunteered yet, so please, if you can, take notes. I'll paste a link to the read write agenda. And that's in the agenda. But if you're only looking at the agenda, if you're not taking notes, please don't use that link. Please use the read only link. I'll paste that link in the agenda as well. So please use a read only link because once with Google Docs, if we have a lot of people taking in the read write copy, it kind of slows it down. So and thank you very much for taking notes. As a reminder, please mute yourself when you're not speaking. So we have a number of topics on the agenda today. They were gathered from the community as topics that are of general community interest. So we encourage people to add agenda topics as well when they think that the topic is a topic that the community should pay attention to or have visibility on. So please reach out to SIG Contributor Experience on Slack if you do have a topic for the next month's community meeting. So let's start off with the release updates. And I want to introduce your release lead for Kubernetes 1.25, Cece. I'm going to hand it off to Cece.
Hi everyone. Thanks. My name is Cece Huang, and I'm currently working at Google. It's been absolutely an honor to become the release lead for 1.25. And we're currently at week 4 now. And I'll be giving some updates for the current release. The major updates is that we delayed the 1.25 enhancement phase until June 23rd, which will be the next Thursday. And there are a few major milestones people might want to keep in mind. Besides the enhancement phase, we have the code phase at Tuesday, 2nd August. And currently, the targeted release date is Tuesday, 23rd August. And we currently have 64 enhancement opt-in. The release team is actively working towards the enhancement phase as of now. Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Cece. Any comments or questions for Cece or about the 125 release? All right, just a reminder, as Cece mentioned, the next major milestone is enhancements freeze on Thursday, June 23rd. Please opt in your enhancements if you want them to be included in the 125 release. All right, now let's move on to the agenda topics. Our first topic is on container registry. So I'm gonna just hand this off to Laura.
Hi, folks. My name is Laura Santa Maria. I am with SIG Contributor Experience, and I'm from Pulumi. And I'm here just to ask folks about the registry.k8s.io. We're asking everyone to start moving their traffic to registry.k8s.io if they're doing any kind of CI builds or any kind of other releases instead of k8s.gcr.io. The reason is that funding, basically money. It would be really, really helpful if y'all could encourage your organizations to make that change so that we don't have to continue paying for GCR images. There are some links in the agenda. I'm happy to take questions. I am not technically the person that ran all of this, but I became an expert in 5 minutes. I did not stay in a Holiday Inn Express last night. So, but questions, comments, feel free to leave them in the chat.
I could say
Discussions.
One thing.
Yes.
So
someone else start talking.
In addition to making sure we don't run out of money in credits by the end of the year, the other nice thing is essentially like a bunch of the various cloud providers are hosting copies of these images in their various regions and availability zones and all other fun stuff. So now when you pull an image, instead of like always going to GCR, and you might now hit essentially your locally cached copy. So it should be a lot faster, in addition to, not costing us money.
Clearly, Bob knows more than I did in setting.
Ben just popped on.
Yay!
I'll pass
Someone else
this
goes.
on over to
Go
sync
ahead.
testing.
Sorry, I'm a little disorganized this morning. We had a few slides prepared, but I'll just say really quickly, at the moment, it is still a redirect just to Google Cloud. But in the near future, we hope to enable that so that when you're coming from AWS, you'll be receiving a copy local to your region in AWS. And in the future, we have room to do more things like that, and the community will control, the backing registry and the behavior there.
Thank you for correcting me.
That was actually my question, because there's a pull request on K website to add possibly add a note since it is currently a mirror or pointing to GCR. And for folks, I did add a link to the KEP as well under KEP callouts. It's under SIG release, the artifact distribution. So that's KEP 3000. So that's.
And there's a question in the chat about the link announcement blog. Is it live to boost awareness? I honestly don't know. Does anybody else know if that blog is live and ready to share out to folks? Is there a blog? I
don't know either. I'm just going to check really quickly on KDEV or Kubernetes-dev. No live blog out currently.
Okay. So there's no blog yet. And someone else asked in the chat, for the Kubernetes service catalog, we want to use it and have invested time in it. Now it's proposed to be retired. Is there any alternative? It is retired. Yes. So.
Quick TLDR on that one. If an authoritative fork exists, we can update where we point it to. But we, at this time, don't have any intention of maintaining it upstream. We literally could not get people to maintain it. And it's honestly a disservice to everyone if we host something and don't archive it, where it's not getting security updates, issues aren't being resolved. So it's, again, if someone else wants to take over for it and continue to maintain it, that's wonderful. We will create pointers to it, but we do not have an intention of maintaining it at this time.
All right. Any other comments or questions about container registry? All right. Let's move on to the next topic, which is the annual report summary. I'm going to hand this off to Paris.
Hey everyone. The last time I was here, was that a month ago or was that 2 months ago? I don't know, time too. Yeah, right. 2 months ago, I talked about how we were rounding the finish line with our annual report summary. Good news is it is out, it's live, and there are a ton of action items for community members. I'm going to share my screen. Let me see if I can do that here. And I can. I also hope I have my notifications off. Y'all will see I get some wild stuff. Anyway, so if you're curious about where to find the report, obviously there's a million different places where I think the easiest slug is cncf.io/reports. And then from there, you'll see it's the very first link. And this is our annual report summary. And for those that were not on the call, the last call, just give like a quick rundown of what it is and why we do it. This is a summary of 37 different reports. Those 37 different reports come from community groups. Those community groups are SIG, special interest groups, working groups, and some user groups as well. And we take all of that information and combined it and create themes, a help wanted section, accolades across the project, and more. This is a great report to give to folks that you work with that might be working on cloud native strategy or cloud native participation or Kubernetes participation or anything along those lines. But it's a great kind of bird's eye view into what's been going on in the last year, as well as some things that are ahead of us. So I just wanted to call out some of the tidbits of the report. I'm not going to go through all of it. Because surprise, in true Kubernetes fashion, it's also like 37 pages. So there is a table of contents in the beginning too for your reading pleasure. But we do call out some terminology in the beginning if we have any new folks on the line and aren't understanding some of the acronyms that I'm saying right now, but they're right there. So scrolling down, we have a ton of accolades because we want everybody to celebrate with us. This is a community of 70,000 people in it with a few hundred what I call maintainers, which are our owners, people who are reviewers and approvers in these files. So all of the things that these folks have done for us in the last year deserve accolades, praises, tweets. So if you're wondering what you should tweet ever, you can start here. Start with praise, right? A lot of these things have to do with all the security efforts that are going around. It has to do with the people, the contributors and the maintainers who are sticking around and showing up. We work on some very large, complex problems at this stage in our project journey, and the folks that stick around with us are everlasting and awesome, and we appreciate every single one of you. After the accolades section, we also have trends and themes. This is the stuff that we have bubbled up. We as the steering committee have seen across reports, whether maybe it's people who need help, maybe it's areas that multiple community groups are focusing on, etc. Obviously, prioritizing quality across the project has been a gigantic theme for us all of the years of our existence. But in this particular last year, it's definitely been on the forefront of most groups' minds. Independent contributors still play a critical part in this project, y'all. That's something that should be lauded and also accoladed for these folks that show up who do work for us, not necessarily on their daytime employer hours, or maybe it's weekend hours, or they don't necessarily have support that a lot of us do have at our day jobs. The other theme that we saw was that niche contributor documentation is still some of the hardest to keep fresh and to keep alive. Obviously, tragedy of the commons in so many of these places. But we noted that this can actually be not only an opportunity for us, but there could be other programs and onboarding programs and things like that that we could use to help out with this, and groups can sort of build roles and stuff around, getting this kind of documentation updated and stuff like that. When I say niche contributor documentation too, I don't necessarily mean our ginormous contributor guide, which is located on cates.dev/guide. I mean the stuff that's in the devel folder that each SIG has that specializes in things that need that operations and things like that that are required for that SIG for you to know as a contributor, especially as someone who's doing reviewing and approving. For instance, the API conventions is one of our largest documentation, like one of our largest niche documents that that's in that folder that gets updated all of the time. Burnout, that is absolutely a theme across the board. It's a theme across industry. It's something that we are all trying to figure out how we can do better and be better to ourselves and each other. It's a topic that it's widely talked about and still remains a hot topic with us. So then we've got an area for growth areas here. And again, these are identified as opportunities or needs. I'm not, like I said, I'm not going to go through each one of these in great detail, but I will at least say them verbally. One is, what's project health anyway? Like, we talk a lot of stuff about what's healthy and what's not. Should we have some kind of standard metrics around this? Every group needs more reviewers. This is something I repeat constantly in my travels around the ecosystem. You also don't need to be a reviewer to review code here. And one of the quickest ways on getting to reviewership is by putting in the work and doing reviews as a non-reviewer. That's how you build trust here. So please feel free, if you're listening to this and you're wondering how you can, climb this contributor ladder, if you will, start by reviewing things that are in the PR queue and give your advice and feedback to the folks that are authoring, and that helps out the folks who are ultimately approving these things, and it goes faster. The 9-to-5 contributor is almost over, and we have to adjust. We've reached this stage in the project now where we don't have too many folks who have this as a 9-to-5 job, and this being upstream contributing. So how do we adjust as a project, especially when we still have 100+ KEPs that aren't in general availability yet? And we also have tons of ginormous large-scale projects that need focus. That's something that we are thinking about. And then last but not least, in the growth area is this reporting process and its summary. This needs some work. It took us 6+ months to do this, you all. 6+ months. I have to reiterate that. That is also just not valuable for anyone, because now we're also talking about the report is stale and our docs are stale. So it's a meta issue that we're working on, and we do have some ideas. But in that same vein of ideas, I have an open issue right now on the steering repo and would love to hear your ideas. Automation, of course, is a part of this revision process, but as everyone knows, automation is not the savior for everything. So we do have some human-related process improvements that we need to make as well. And then the next sections, I'm definitely not going to read, but I just want to call out that the next are the help wanted areas. Many of these areas have under 5 unique reviewers, which is definitely, as far as project health is concerned, is concerning. But the SIGs took the time, took some time out for y'all to read through these and explicitly tell you where they need help. Obviously, we have help wanted issues, good first issues, etc. That's really where you jump in and help when you talk about jumping in, quote, quote. But these folks have bubbled up at a very high level where they need the most help. So if you're reading this report and you're wondering how to impact change or how to help out in any of these areas that they're calling out, start by going to meetings and getting involved, and obviously asking questions. And then the last sections that, let me scroll all the way down here, is the initiatives. So this is really important for folks, like I said, that are doing strategy and things like that at your organizations. This is stuff that's on deck. We've done, this is sort of like a roadmap area, if you will, for all of these, our little micro communities here in Kubernetes. So I'm going to stop my share and see if anybody has any questions.
Yeah, you said this took 6 months. Where was most of that time spent? What part of the process was the slowest?
I'd say both. I'd say equal blockers with the collecting of the information from already overburdened individuals. And then the second one is the creation of this actual report, because all of the data is coming in different ways. So like some of it has links, some of it's not. So Bob and I spent a tremendous amount of time cleaning this up and making it readable. And that's kind of where the automation and the generator development and things like that will help us out a ton. But that first part is more, human things that we need to help out with. So I definitely think it's a two-parter, and I think they're about equal pain, to be honest. Bob, would you agree with that?
Yep. One other thing that I definitely would like to see more of is most of the groups, the people that work in it were the leads. When a lot of this can be farmed out to, other members in the community. Especially when it comes to providing more context on some of the areas that are like that you need help, or some of the big initiatives. That context really, helps when trying to talk about an area that needs help or an initiative. If you just see like a link to an acronym that you don't necessarily understand, especially when you're an outside person looking in, that's not necessarily going to motivate you to go look at it. So getting more people involved to help with those reports would be a big help.
I also think that, again, I don't like to always put stuff on automation and like building of generators and things like that. But I do think that once we have a lot of that infrastructure built for those said leads and things, that we can then move those conversations, meaning like the steering has with the leads, to more important ambiguous topics, like identifying their needs at a high level, like doing roadmaps and stuff like that. But I think we spend a lot of the conversations right now on just the administrivia. That's why for us, I feel like it's also not valuable. But I mean, from a steering committee perspective in general, this is still very valuable to us. We just don't necessarily think it's valuable to anybody else. It's valuable to us because every year it opens up conversations with leads about things like their terms, and also things like the archiving of projects, aka like service catalog. It's opened up a good way for us to communicate health and maturity and things along those lines with folks who are already extremely busy. But again, like, is this valuable to the community? Like, sure, it's valuable to a group of 7 individuals. But how do we make this better for y'all? How do we make this better for people who are making decisions at these major players that are putting folks on staff? Like, I think that's the real stuff that I would like to get to the bottom of with this report.
Like one other comment, like if you can share this report, like it's not just for the people on the call, share it with, higher level leadership to see what they would, see what they want in a report like that. What would be valuable to them to potentially, allocate resources to, or, the types of risks that they want to see.
All right, so any other comments or questions about the annual reports? Before we move on, I want to say a big thank you for those who worked on this annual reports. We understand it took a long time. I know Paris and Bob spent many, many hours on this report, and folks like Eddie, Tim Bannister, Madhav also spend a lot of time with
and you
this report. Welcome.
And you.
So this report's very important. There's a lot of places that folks can help out. So please, I reiterate, if you're a new contributor or a veteran contributor, please check out the Help Wanted section in the annual reports. All right, let's move on to talk to our third topic, which is the KubeCon EU meetings and sustainability and more. Hand it off to Bob.
Hey, folks. So we've talked a lot about sustainability and reliability on these calls in the past. And we sort of had, I forget, there was an email thread that sort of like really led to a unconference session that was hosted at KubeCon EU. And there was some very fruitful conversations that came out of that. It was essentially Wojtek and Antonio up on stage that sort of started the conversation. I'm actually going to, Ben captured it in a meme perfectly during part of the discussion. But one of the big things for us was, let me just pull my notes real quick. Essentially, how do we convey and like how do we know areas of the project that need help? This is things like looking at bugs, things like looking at code coverage, and using that information that sort of tells us like when should we stop accepting features into a specific area or component of the project. So several of the I kind of touched on two of them. Two of the AIs were we want to implement better code coverage reporting and be able to surface that information better. The other regarding surfacing of bugs is that now that we've added the triage labels, triage accepted, and we want to sort of take a look at that plus the kind bug label. So, and like map that to the different components. So if we can see that there's a bunch of recognized bugs that are touching a specific area of the code base, but they aren't getting resolved, coupled with like the lifecycle labels, that can serve as better key indicators for us that like, hey, we should not be accepting features into this space, as well as potential, not just for us that potentially want to add these features ourselves, but also surface it up to the larger groups that are invested in the project. Like, hey, we should not be adding anything more here until we can shore up our coverage and make sure that this area is healthy. Now, one of the big blockers to shoring this stuff up and making sure it's healthy is we do have a lack of reviewers, a lack of approvers. Paris was just talking about this. So we have the two things that sort of tell us where there are problems, and the answer to solving those problems is largely mentoring. We've done the mentoring cohorts in the past. They have been very successful. This is not one-on-one mentoring. This is we are taking a group of people and we are focused on getting them to a specific spot. We want to, in a release cycle, we want to make them reviewers over this area. Maybe over the next release, they become approvers in that area. The big thing is that does require time and investment from the current people that are approvers, the subject matters in that space. But like we see this as like pretty much the only long-term solution to fixing those areas and creating a more sustainable path forward with all this. I think that covers the TLDR. Anyone else that was there at the unconference have any other comments or notes?
We also had a good session on release team management. I don't have the notes up in front of me right now, unfortunately. Got some of the people on here who were key parts of that. Like, isn't Porco here?
I think I did see Adolfo.
Yeah. I mean, a general summary could have been how we run the release team needs tweaking. And we discussed a lot of possibilities around that tweaking. And mostly it's the major issue that the pipeline of people going from, oh, okay, Porco, you want to say something about this? You were co-leading that session, I believe.
You are muted. More technical difficulties.
Okay, I guess not. We'll get back to that. Are there people who were a part of other sessions that want to just do a quick readout on what happened at the Contributor Summit?
Yeah, I think, can you hear me, Josh?
Yes.
Yeah, the one quick note that I would say from the CI Signal meeting was I led a session where I discussed CI Signal kind of from the point of view of onboarding new people onto that team and roughly what the team does in capturing and reporting flaky tests. And one of the insightful things that occurred for me in that meeting was that we had developers and contributors there giving feedback that was super insightful in relation to what improvements they would like to see on some of the CI tooling. So I think it would be possibly good to talk about what the CI Signal team do directly to core contributors and get their feedback as to what they'd like to see, what improvements they would like to see on CI tools. A lot of the tooling that when you sit with it all day, every day, as you do on CI Signal, is excellent. And the more you sit with it, the better you get at finding things and reporting things. But soliciting feedback from developers who would be looking maybe at those tools from the point of view of maintaining tests, I think soliciting feedback from them would be useful and engaging them to make suggestions and so on. So it's something that I'd like to follow up on. I've been super busy the last week or two, but yeah, I think it's just something that's worth saying. Let's talk to developers about CI tools. Does that make sense?
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. Specifically, I made a really a suggestion on how to improve Spyglass and got really super good feedback on that yeah, if we could add some features to Spyglass to help test maintainers, that would be a good thing to do.
So Adolfo, know that hopefully your tech issues are fixed.
Yeah, hopefully. So can you
Yep, you're good.
Yeah.
Yep.
Can you repeat the question, Josh?
Oh, this was just about the release team session that we had at the Contributor Summit.
Oh yeah, so yeah, it was like a very good one, and it was a really good space to have because we had like lots of the usual people that work on the releases there, and yeah, we were exposing some of the challenges that we have onboarding. And so the release team is currently like a really good place for people to rotate in and out to get to know some of the areas of the project, and they get to know how Kubernetes gets released and some of the features that go into it. But it has been kind of hard of making some of those people stick, and also like encouraging them to do more long-lasting contributions, particularly in SIG release. I don't know if I mean we've seen some of the members of the release team rotating into other SIGs, but we sometimes lose track of them and we don't know what their success story is over there. But from that session we got like new ideas, and we are going to be trying out some new ways of onboarding new release managers in the next 2 releases. Hopefully we'll get more successful.
And just to add to that, the release team, I myself, it was introduced to contributing to this project by the release team, and then went on to other SIGs as well. I know there's several other folks here on this call that have been members of releasing before, and also did the same or also progress the contributor ladder in SIG release or release engineering. But just want to highlight and broadcast it for new folks or new contributors. It really seems it's a great place to join and to start contributing to the Kubernetes project. All right, any comments or questions about the release team meeting, CI Signal meeting, or the KubeCon EU meetings? Just a question, are there any formal mentoring cohorts currently in the pipeline or scheduled?
I know SIG CLI and SIG apps are doing one. Paris,
Not
do you
for
have
new, it's not for new contributors.
Not
though.
for
Oh
new
yeah.
contributors,
No,
Yeah.
right now there is nothing that I know of in place for new contributors to the project. You have to be org members to participate in these.
Thank you. Last call for questions or comments. Okay. That's it for our topics in the agenda. So the next agenda, I guess not really a topic, but for KEP call out, I did add in the artifact distribution KEP or Kubernetes enhancement proposal, which is the KEP that describes the registry move. Shout outs this month. So we have a Slack channel for shout outs. So as a community, we like to praise others for their contributions and for those who do go above and beyond. So I just want to briefly read out some of the shout outs. Bear with me. So Alana Hashman shout outs to the 124 release team and hundreds of contributors for the 124 release. Jordan Liggett shouts out to many folks who raised, debug, and root cause longstanding bug that was causing a weird flake. So that was Ilana Hashman, Daniel Lankenshire, Sergey Ruin, Mike Brow, Bobby Page, Antonio Dims, and others. Laura Santamaria shouts out to Joseph Sandoval, Paris Pittman, and myself for the April community meeting. Paris thanks Madhav for crunching numbers for the annual reports. I did a shout out for the 124 release team and for release managers. The release team and release managers, they put out a lot of efforts for each release, and that's 3 times a year. Ben Elder shouts out to Sasha Greenert for automating release branch fast forwards. Antonio O'Hea shouts out to WatchTech for reducing thousands of Go routine leakages during the API server shutdown. James Lavreck shouts out to Mickey Boxell for all the work for the 1.24 CNCF release webinar. Tim Bannister shouts out to Mark Rossetti for the overhaul on the Kubernetes on Windows documentation. Paris Pittman shouts out to Tim Bannister for editing the annual reports, Ray Lahano for the last minute polish, Madhav for the maintainer stats, Dims for the maintainer tool as well, and Eddie Zane for stepping in and helping SIGs to get the reports published. Joel Gokar shouts out to WatchTech for fixing a big CI job. Ben Elder shouts out to Eddie Zane for stepping up again to help run the SIG testing meeting. Madhav shouts out to Patrick Oli for growing the number of reviewers in Klog. And Carlos Santana shouts out to Veronica Lopez for going above and beyond for cutting the 125 alpha.1 release and updating the 125 timeline. Josh shouts out to Pooja, Deb, Roger, Kaslin, Chris Shorts, Nigel for the contributor summit and KubeCon EU in Valencia. So that summarizes all the shout outs for this month. I want to thank everyone for your time and for attending the June 2022 Kubernetes community meeting. And I think that's it for me. Just leave some time for just any last minute comments or questions.
And a shout out to Ray for hosting.
Oh,
Hey,
thank
and
you very
thank
much.
you, Josh, for taking notes.
Yeah, big thank you for Josh for taking notes. It's always a big effort.
Recording is about to be stopped.